Welcome to another episode of Hiring and Empowering Solutions. My name is Molly McGrath, and I am the founder and creator of this revolutionary office-altering podcast. If you are a first-time listener, welcome. And if you are a returning listener, welcome back. As always, you can check us out at hiringandempowering.com. Okie dokie. So today I'm so excited. I am interviewing one of my best friends, childhood friends. These are, you guys probably heard me since grammar school. Every year, all 8 of us go on a girls' trip and we have so much fun. And today I am having one of my chicks here, Laurie Josey. Hi, Laurie. Thanks for being here.
Good morning, Molly. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
I know. So we, Laurie and I've been chatting and I'm like, you have got to come on my podcast and I want you to speak from a client's perspective. And today we're going to be speaking about attorneys. Your clients want you to hear this. Laurie is going to share with her story, and her and I are going to kind of banter back and forth about her process of going through nursing home planning and going through the estate planning process with her mother. And, you guys hear me say this all the time. And for 25 years, I have been working with estate planning and elder law attorneys. And my favorite attorneys get such a bad rap for, being all money hungry and unethical and inauthentic and blah, 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 blah. Totally against my experience. Like, I am such an unwavering stand for estate planning attorneys in general. Solo small practitioners are like my favorite attorneys to work with, and really all that we work with. And it just makes me so angry when I hear people say that about attorneys, that, they're all about the money, that they're, snake oil salesmen, whatever they say. And that's just not my experience. Estate planning and elder law attorneys are like social workers with law degrees. They're bleeding hearts. They have such a commitment for their clients, sometimes to a fault, where they just give and give and give, and they are just fight for families every single day. Well, here's the deal, and here's what Laurie and I are going to talk about. Like, nobody knows what you do. You have to get your message out there. And I know attorneys don't like to market. They don't want to be boastful. They don't want to, toot their own horn, things of that nature. But you can't help people if they don't know what you do. And Laurie's known me forever. And when she found herself in a situation where her and her family needed to, do something about mom, so to speak, one of our other best friends, Kim, said to her, well, Molly does this stuff. Like, you should probably call her. And for 25 years, this is all that I've done. And so often people are like, oh my God, that's what you do. And it's not until they're in a position where they need it. And a lot of it is because it's very difficult to articulate, number one. Number two, people believe that estate planning is just for the rich. People believe that Medicaid planning is just for the poor. And there's just so much noise and so much confusion out there. And it breaks my heart, to be completely honest. I was actually even at a happy hour this week. I had a girlfriend and we're chit-chatting, and they're, of course, telling the story about mom, what their experience would have you. And I start talking, and all of a sudden you could feel like the walls closing in. Everyone starts gathering around me and listening, and they're like, what? Like, this is what your attorneys do? And my one girlfriend, Julie, goes, why don't people know about this? I'm like, exactly. So I'm excited for Laurie to kind of share her story, her experience, like unedited, just share like really truly. And I want you attorneys to listen up, because this is the voice of the client. This is the voice of, everyday folk that are without your education, without your knowledge, without your direction, without your leadership, then they could really get into some tricky situations. So if nothing else, I want you guys to, kind of listen to Laurie and I and really take this to heart and get over yourself, get over your fear of being out there and being visible, and be in public because you cannot save families. You cannot protect families. You cannot give them a peace of mind if they don't know what the hell you do. So you really listen to us today. And I'm so excited, Laurie, for you to share kind of your experience. So you're in this spot, where Kim says, well, you probably should call Molly and, just share with us a little bit about what, and as much as you want to share, what you and your family were experiencing where you're like, we got to do something here.
Yeah. So, gosh, and I'm going to really try and not get emotional here because.
Oh, no. We cry all the time on this podcast.
Well, you know me, I'm a crier anyway. And when you bring me back to almost a year ago to the date of what we went through, my family went through, it was really, really difficult because we had no knowledge of what estate planning. I mean, I've heard the terms before, estate planning, gosh, my husband and I had just done our own estate planning a couple years previously, but we were doing it from the perspective of, how do we want to set up life for our kids should something happen to us? So that's very different, when you're kind of young and healthy and you're looking to set up your will and all of the things, that go along with that. It's a very different experience because you're young and you're healthy and you're thinking, I'm setting up a future for my children. But when you're in a position where, one of your parents is, needs to go into a nursing home or assisted living, that's very different. My parents have not shared with me what their finances were. Growing up, we grew up in just kind of, a middle class home. And money just wasn't talked about. And so, a year ago, my mom, well, let me back up a little bit. So my mom was diagnosed with Alzheimer's probably a couple of years ago. My stepdad was her caretaker, and he is a pretty private person, and he took care of her, and they've been married for 20 years, and he loves her to death and she loves him to death. And so, we just assumed they were a happy couple being taken care of each other. And when my mom was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, he just kind of stepped up to the plate and took care of her. And, in some ways, looking back in hindsight, covered a lot of things up and didn't share some of the struggles. And I think he's just, I don't blame him for that. I think he's just a proud man. And he saw it as his job was to take care of her. And so, I live in Durham, North Carolina. They live in Buffalo, New York. So I would only come home a couple of times a year and I would stay with them. And, I did notice my mom's, memory issues, but they just didn't seem significant. My mom's a real social person and she loves people. And, she would talk your ear off about everything and anything. But what I found was that when I would ask her questions, about things or specific details, she just wasn't able to answer them. Or she would get really frustrated with me and change the subject. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I never really knew how significant her Alzheimer's was until all hell broke loose. And that was last December when I got a phone call that my stepdad had gone into the hospital for some heart issues. And so I got on a plane and I flew home. And I think I was there within 24 hours. And I realized within the first 2 hours that my mom couldn't function without him. That she didn't know which way was up and which way was down. And it was just like a slap in the face in a way, because I was like, who is this woman? I mean, I talked to her on the phone weekly. But I guess it was a real eye opener that he was doing everything for her and taking care of her in a way that, that we just had no idea. I have a brother and a sister who live there. They're busy. They have jobs, families, so they do their own thing and they check on, my mom and her husband every now and then. But anyway, I was in the house taking care of my mom and realizing that she couldn't function without my stepdad. She really couldn't. I mean, she didn't know what she should be eating. She didn't know what she should be putting on her body in the morning for dressing. She really was incompetent. And I had called my brother and sister and said, we need an emergency meeting because our stepdad was in the hospital. We didn't even know if he was going to make it. He had some major heart issues, and we didn't know if he was coming home. And we realized we asked ourselves, who's going to take care of mom? And none of us are in a position, or we're in a position that we felt like we could bring her into our homes and take care of her at the level that she needed. And so it was like a light switch where we started scrambling for, what are we going to do? And we didn't even know where to start. We didn't even know where to start. So after, I guess, talking with, like you said, our friend Kim, and said, I said to her, my mom can't function by herself. I don't know if our stepdad's coming home, if he's going to live or if he's going to die. And I need to get back home at some point. And my brother and sister have their families and their lives. So what do we do? And we knew that what we were talking about really ultimately was that she was going to have to go somewhere, go into an assisted living, a nursing home. And let me tell you, Molly, we didn't even know the difference between those two things at the time. And so, where was this money going to come from? So we started making phone calls. We started going onto websites, where can we put her? What does she need? And it was, I think, when we went to the hospital to visit my stepdad and talk with him about some things, that I was just a basket case. I was a complete mess. I was crying constantly. I just cried every moment of every day, because I didn't know what was happening and what to do about it. And they hooked me up with a social worker. I think one of the nurses who was taking care of my stepdad just felt really bad for me. And she hooked me up with a social worker who started kind of steering me in the right direction in terms of, there's nursing homes and there's assisted living, and here's, some numbers that you can call to kind of get the ball rolling and whatnot. And so we started looking on websites and making phone calls and realizing, oh my Lord, where are we going to get the money? Where is the money going to come from? I mean, we're talking thousands and thousands of dollars, as you know, a month. Where is this money going to come from? We don't know what my mom has, what my stepdad has. We don't know what the value of the house is worth. We don't know if they have stocks and bonds. We know nothing. And where are we going to get this information from? And that's where I really had a breakdown. And I fell to my knees. And I prayed. And then, Molly, you came on the scene and you just started taking care of business. You told me who to call. You told me what I needed to do. And that's when I started picking myself up from the ground and knowing that there were tasks that needed to be taken care of. But I didn't know without you. I didn't know what those tasks were and how to accomplish them. And anyway, pointed me in the direction, and that was the direction of, elder law and a lawyer who does this every single day. Every single day. and making a phone call to his office and speaking with I guess she was a paralegal. It was like, I don't know, I was in control. Things felt back in control. And yeah, so I probably just talked for 20 minutes straight, but that's my story.
Oh my God. I'm sitting here in tears. It was
Ugh.
so amazing. Like all that stress and worry and uncertainty and all that. And good God, people stay off of Google. Like it's
Yeah,
so,
right?
oh my gosh. But then I'm like, call Cindy. She was a client service coordinator at,
Yes,
at
that's right.
Harry's law firm. And, yeah, they do this every single day. And just even getting on that one phone call and she's like, yep, we know exactly what we need to do. Here's step one. Right. Here's step two. Here's step three. And immediately, like, you get to grieve. You get to feel your emotions and be a daughter versus, a financial planner and whatever else, a social worker and all this other stuff where finally you're like, just please take it and tell us what to do.
Exactly. That's all I needed. I just needed somebody to tell me what to do, what steps to take, because I really just felt blindsided by, the condition of my mother's, my mother's mental health, and, neurological health. And, again, where was the money going to come from? I think that was the biggest thing. Do we sell the house? But what if my stepdad comes home? Well, where is he going to live? How much money did they have? Again, the privacy, anything about their finance. And thankfully, my mother was like, gosh, she was amazing with saving her money. And, there was money there, but we didn't know it was there. We didn't know how to find out if there was money anywhere. So, just Harry taking us through, okay, let's start here. Okay. Like, I was looking at this big picture that just seemed so unmanageable. But, Harry put us on this trajectory of, here are the things you need to do. Like, we're going to start with this. When we accomplish this, we're going to move to step 2 and we're going to move to step 3, and he laid out the pathway to, allowing us to do what we needed to do for my mom. And realizing, and helping us figure out, you have the means to do X, Y, and Z, but not A, B, and C, so just the guidance that was provided. This is what these people do. And unless you know somebody, like I was so blessed to have you, guide me to the people that I needed to go to, to Harry. But people who don't have that, again, stay off Google. But like, if you don't have any other option, Google's the way to go, because what else are you going to do? I was very lucky to have you and give me that direction. But if you don't have that, then what do you do? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's attorneys need to get their names and their services out there somehow, some way. And gosh, with social media being what it is today, it seems like it's not that hard, right? Like, just let us know you're there. Let us know what you do.
Yeah. And speaking to the listening, because, and I'm going to give Harry a big giant plug here. It's Harry Scarmella with Life Law out of Utica in Syracuse, New York. And to Laurie's point, she's in North Carolina. Like, I don't know, do I talk to a North Carolina attorney? Do I talk to a New York attorney? Do I need an attorney? Do I talk to a social worker? Like, who the hell knows? And, there are only 5,000 elder law attorneys in the country right now. It's growing.
Mm.
Definitely since the pandemic. I get phone calls all the time from, people that are saying, oh my gosh, I'm getting, my phone's blowing up. They might be a divorce attorney. My phone's blowing up, but people panicking because they don't know what to do about mom in the nursing home. Do we pull her out? Especially since COVID. Like that's a
Right.
whole nother thing of not being able to see your family or be able to get them. Do I pull them out? Do I keep them in? Where the hell are we going to put them? Like it's attorneys do, to your point, you need to get on when they go on Google, you want them to be able to find your workshop or your video or your messaging or your downloadable guide of somewhere where in that moment at 2:00 in the morning when Laurie's pacing her kitchen, like what are we going to do? Having just extreme, and if any, I've been in this position, as you know, with both of my parents, like it's no joke. And you're not going to be like, oh, okay, I'm going to have a panic attack between 9 to 5 when an attorney's office is open. No, you have it at 2:00 in the morning. And then
right.
Where do you go? You go to the World Wide Web. And then this is where you find a bunch of yahoos with misinformation. So attorneys, you are doing the human race such a massive, massive, massive disservice. Like if you can, like how great would it be, Laurie, if you didn't know me and didn't live and breathe this all day long and you went to Google and Harry was spending so much time and energy on, online, which he doesn't. And, maybe that's changing a little bit since the pandemic, but he was the first person that you landed on versus, my girlfriend at this happy hour this week, Julie, she's like, well, my parents did a will and the attorney told them to spend down, just to, let the nursing home take the house and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, wait, what? And she goes, I go, the attorney said that? I'm like, who's this attorney? She goes, well, actually, it was a financial advisor. I'm like, of course. That's what they always do. Like, it's always you're going to the people like your financial advisor or even you, like you don't know the difference between assisted living or nursing home. And you're like, all
That's
of a sudden, the social worker is trying to help me. Well, the social worker, if not properly connected with the proper elder law attorney and doesn't have the knowledge, they're just going to give you advice from their, cheap seat, so to speak, their perspective. And it is not easy to be an elder law attorney. It takes a tremendous, especially if you're a certified elder law attorney or a specialized elder law attorney, they put a tremendous amount. I sat through the technical legal training. Like it is no joke. It's the spend down, the qualification, the 5-year look back, all the moving pieces with it is incredible. And so attorneys, you really, really, like to Laurie's point of, I don't know anything, educating, wouldn't it have been great if your mom and your stepdad had some knowledge 5 years ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago when they were healthy and lucid and all that. And they were getting messages across their feed that say, you need to have the conversations with the kids about your finances.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. For sure. Because, and I'm just going to go back a little bit to, the social worker, which social workers are amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And they have their niche, right? But really all the social worker, could help us with is here's a list. Here's, a list of nursing homes. Here's a list of assisted living. Your mom has dementia, so you're going to want to look for memory care units. And I was like, wait, what? Wait, tell me. I thought nursing home and assisted living were the same thing. And so, the social worker was like, no, here are the differences. And again, with Alzheimer's, there's memory care units and not all facilities have that. So, the social worker was great for all of that and giving us some recommendations of the area we were looking in location wise. But what they didn't do or couldn't help us with because it's not their thing. Where's the money going to come from? or how do we figure out how to make this doable or what our position is? And so, that's where these, elder law attorneys come in. And, I feel like we were behind the 8 ball when we spoke with Harry because, we were having to put my mom in like immediately into her memory care unit. And so there was a lot of backtracking we had to do. Like we had to hunt down, her finances and her taxes and figure out where all this, what money she had before we could actually place her, right? Because, not all places cost the same. And so you have to figure out what's going to work for your family, right? Like just what's going to work. So that's where the estate planning and these elder law attorneys come in is to, if I would have had this information earlier, we could have started working on a plan a long time ago versus, going through the trauma. And I mean trauma. It was the biggest trauma of my life. I know you remember that call, Molly, where I just completely fell apart because, it's like your mom's living in your family home one minute and you're deciding she can't do that anymore. So going through the steps when you're in a trauma situation, it is really, really hard. So my biggest suggestion is finding a way for these attorneys to get their information out to people ahead of time so that you're ready if and when the time comes.
Yeah. And then you don't have to go, you're heartbroken, you're scared, you're nervous. All those feels are there. But to your point, like trauma, it is like someone just threw an atomic bomb at your heart, your entire body. You're frozen. You're just like,
yes,
it is the worst feeling in the world, but it would lessen the blow so much more. I mean, if you went through that for a week or an hour, it doesn't matter. The impact and the staying power of that, which is so completely unnecessary from that perspective of the financials and all that. Like then you get to just be with the family side of things and all that versus having to throw all that other uncertainty on top of it. And
that's right. Yeah.
To your point, like, holy moly. And when you're in trauma like that, most people just go to a place of complete shutdown and they're like, all right, I have to like wrestle with this amongst myself and then with my siblings. So screw it, take everything. Really at that point where you're like, where's the money going to come from? There's also a flip side of that where you're like, I can't do all this. It's so overwhelming. So just take it all. And how horrible, because you just feel completely helpless, completely overwhelmed. And because you don't have a guiding force, you can't find any information, you just assume that, well, this is, people hear this all the time, like you lose everything to the nursing home and they believe it's a truth.
Right. That's right. That's right. Yeah. I just can't say enough about how things could have gone so differently. I mean, I started crying early on, probably in the first few sentences as I was telling my story, because I still feel it to my core, what I went through when I, went into my family home and realized, in some ways my mom was functioning like a toddler. I mean, and to not know what you're going to do about that. And that her caretaker possibly wasn't coming home. And even if he was, I remember being in my stepdad's hospital bed room. And I remember thinking, okay, he's getting better. He was in there for over 2 weeks, but he was getting better. And I knew he was going to come home. But I was like, there's no way this man can take care of her. Probably the reason he had the heart issues that he had was because of the stress of what he was living. The taking care of someone with Alzheimer's, unless you've done it, you just can't even begin to imagine what that takes. And so, then we were kind of worried, like, what are we going to do with him? He can't come home and take care of himself, let alone my mother. So, there was just so many pieces to the puzzle. And I just felt like all the pieces were not even in reach. And so, having that go-to person that will take you through what needs to be done before you get to that stage will just make everyone's life so much easier and save you from the trauma.
Yeah. Going right back to, Ralph, like where you're like, oh my God, like if he would have known 2 years ago, a year ago, whatever it is that, about a personal care plan, about in-home health care, if he was getting the messages, like if you're noticing these things, there are resources to support you. And then he could have preserved his own health as well. But woulda, shoulda, coulda. It's, there are 10 million cases like this a day that are occurring, especially now with the extreme stress that we're under as a nation, as a world, with the global pandemic. And now more than ever, and I love that you said that, like, get your message out, attorneys. I mean, right here in our conversation, because this is who I am and what I do, I have a list of probably like 40 different videos you could do of, parents, start talking about the money with the kids. Parents, do your kids know about your financial situation? Mom's living in the family home 1 minute and then she's not. I mean, who wouldn't watch that video? I thought assisted living and nursing home was the same. There's so many, who's going to take care of mom? There are so many messages on here in regards to, Google doesn't have the answers for, do I talk to a social worker? There are so many messages that we're giving to you here, and it needs to be in plain English. They don't need legalese, because nobody's going to be like, oh, Medicaid planning, the average bearer thinks that means for the poor.
Right.
They don't know that that's nursing home planning, but you have to. And Laurie, I cannot thank you enough for like getting on here and sharing your heart, your experience, your family story with us, because you're not alone. There are so many. I was talking to one of my attorney clients yesterday, and he gets so furious because, people will come in from other attorneys or financial advisors or what have you. And he's like, I can't undo this crap that they did. And, we were talking, he goes, I'm going to hang up. I'm going to record a video right now that's called, why didn't dad tell us about this? I'm like, that's the exact message that needs to be out there, not the legalese terms of the difference between the 5-year look back and blah, blah, blah. Nobody knows what that means. Speaking to somebody's listening in a way to make a difference for them.
Yes, I 100% agree. I really do. It's just so important for people in layman's terms to understand. I mean, I'm an educated person, and I really didn't even know what elder law meant. I mean, the words themselves, you kind of said, oh, this must be for senior citizens. But, to know I needed a lawyer that specialized in that, was only because you gave me that information, Molly, right? Like I would have just called any attorney, open Google and okay, who's the first person, and started scrambling. But, this is a specialty area, and it's a really, really important one. And the fact that you said that there was only 5,000 lawyers or people that do that blew my mind. When you said that, my jaw literally fell open, because the need for attorneys that specialize in this is huge. I mean, absolutely huge. And gosh, please message out there. Those that do it, get your message out there. Us help our parents.
Oh, I love that. And this is my favorite part too, because I remember talking to like I don't know, a month or little after that your mom was in the facility, and you saying, you know what, she's actually happy.
Yes. Oh gosh. Yeah. So I should share that. Um, my mom is doing, again, it's almost a year to the day that she was placed into her assisted living memory care unit. And, with the pandemic, I tell people all of the time, every time people ask me, how's your mom doing? My response is better than most. And that is because she's in an amazing place. She goes to bingo. She goes to church. She goes to exercise class. She goes to ceramics. She gets 3 balanced meals a day. She gets her laundry done. She actually thinks she works there, which is kind of funny. When I call her, she'll answer the phone. Hello, this is Teresa. May I help you?
Oh, I love
It's
it.
adorable. And sometimes after a few minutes on the phone, she'll tell me, all right, I got to go, honey. I got to get back to work. But she's living a good life there. She really is. She's being taken care of. Everyone loves her there. They always say, your mom is so funny and she's so social. And, it's like a little activities director herself, because she goes to all of the different activities that they have throughout the day. And she really is happy. And, that makes my heart warm. And I couldn't ask for a better situation for her. Honestly, I really couldn't. There's no way any of us could provide the care that she's given. And we certainly couldn't provide the social life, right?
Especially now,
So,
right?
yeah, for sure. For sure. So she's great. And again, things worked out the way they were supposed to. And my siblings and I, and our stepdad, we know that, it was because of you, Molly. It was because of Cindy. It was because of Harry. That my mom is living the best possible life that she can be living at this point.
Mm. Oh my God. I am so teary-eyed right now. That makes me so happy. So happy. Like you said, better than most. And especially look at the hindsight. And during a pandemic, she would be sitting in her
Oh,
house.
oh my goodness. For sure. For sure. When I call my stepdad, what are you doing? I say, and he says, oh, watching TV, watching the Bills game, and I'm like, the Bills game's not even on it. Well, I'm rewatching it because I recorded it. He's just bored to death. And, the restaurants aren't open there. He used to like to go for a cup of coffee and sit at the counter and, but so I actually, I have more concerns for him. At this stage of his life and being lonely than I do for my mom, because she's around a lot of people and she's going, like I said, from one thing to the next. So, yeah, it's, I think in some ways he's jealous. He wishes he could be where she
oh gosh, Laurie, thank you so much. I am beyond grateful that, first of all, you're like one of my bestest friends in the entire world. And I just love that we get to have these amazing, heartfelt conversations all the time. And that, there's no pride in holy cow, my family needs help, and reaching out. And so many people, like you said, especially that generation, they don't talk about crap. They don't talk about their finances. They would never, ever tell you. So often, even when my parents were sick, my sister used to go over there and she'd look at my dad's old school handwritten calendar and see he'd have doctor's appointments. She'd show up in the doctor's office with them. She's like, you're hiding something. I know it. They just don't talk. And it's because they were raised not to talk about it. And attorneys, you got to educate that generation, which is your ideal client, to start speaking. There is no shame in it. And you have to educate your kids, and you have to share Laurie's story, because it would break your mom's heart if she knew what you all went through in the beginning of that. And if she could have done something to release that anxiety and trauma and fear from your heart, in hindsight, in a heartbeat, she would have done it, right?
For sure. Absolutely. 100%. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your story. I cannot wait to share this podcast with our listeners. And I know that everybody's just going to be so deeply, deeply grateful for you coming here today and sharing your story and your family's story.
Well, thank you, Molly, for having me. I love you to death. And I'm proud of the work that you are doing because, you're on the front lines of helping families in one of the most difficult periods of their lives. So thank you. And thanks for letting me come on and share my story.
Aw, thank you. All right. Until next time, it's a good stopping point for us. This has been another episode of Hiring and Empowering Solutions, and we'll talk to you next week. Go get your message out there, attorneys.